This is a great year for Superman fans, and it may be the best year of Superman content in decades. This is supported with the latest Superman movie that released this summer, which started off the DCU, the last season of Superman and Lois, the return of the Adventures of Superman comic title that we haven't seen since Post Crisis, and the overall hype of the summer of Superman. Superman is not only my favorite DC character, but he is also my favorite character in fiction. For me, the announcement of the new Superman movie was the most excited I've been for a movie in a long time, but if a Superman video game were to be announced, it would easily be my most anticipated DC game. And that would even be over the new Lego Batman video game that was announced a few months ago. What's up, you guys? It's JJ'sGTLMS again, back after a long time. And I'm just going to be talking about why I think a Superman video game is likely to happen, or at least more likely to happen than it was in the past. What I would add to a Superman game to make it very entertaining, and why a Superman game should be made. Superman is the most iconic superhero and character in all of fiction, and it's shocking that he's never had a successful game in the past. With DC's track record of great games like the Batman Arkham Saga and the Lego Batman games, it's shocking to think about the lack of successful games from DC's vast library of heroes. DC fans have made a chart to compare the number of adaptations for DC's most popular characters in the DC Trinity, and it shows the lack of games for Superman and Wonder Woman, or adaptations in general, that they have in comparison with Batman. Recently, the Wonder Woman game was cancelled, which would have given us a game for one of DC's most important characters. I hope that in the future, Wonder Woman will get the respect the character deserves in adaptations. DC fans have been asking for a Superman game for decades, so I hope that making a Superman game will become DC's priority. I believe that the success of the latest Superman adaptations make a potential Superman game more likely to happen, especially if we get a successful Superman trilogy in the DCU, when the first one was already a financial and critical success. Many people believe that a Superman game can't be made, can't be enjoyable due to how OP the character is. They think that the game wouldn't provide any challenges due to how powerful Superman is. And it's no surprise that people think this, since a lot of people lack knowledge on the source material and think that Superman's just one-shotting everybody. But I think it's still odd to say this when we have video games with overpowered characters like Kratos, and everyone loves God of War, Doom, Devil May Cry, etc. Superman has plenty of villains that can challenge the character physically, so a creative team should be able to capitalize on that. I'm going to list some ideas that I would put in a Superman game. By the way, I'm just a Superman fan, a comic book fan, not an actual game developer, so take my ideas with a grain of salt. I have no idea what it would take to animate these things. To start off, a Superman game should be on all consoles and PC, and should be open world. Too many superhero games are becoming PlayStation exclusives, and this only limits the amount of people that will be able to play the game. While I'm sure Superman fans would be grateful for any type of Superman game, especially a Lego Superman game, I think it would be a disservice to the character to give him a game that isn't open world because of all the character's capabilities in an open environment, like flying, for example. Like most modern single-player games, a Superman game will need a story mode or a campaign. I don't have many ideas about what the story should be for the character, but as a huge fan, I want the game developers and the writers of the story to come up with something that is unique and that is not an overused story that we see in plenty of adaptations. I don't mind some adaptations being synchronized with the DCU, especially since that's James Gunn's plan to have some games be connected to his new universe. But I would prefer the Superman game to have its own continuity, its own lore, and a new voice actor that's never played Superman before. I think it's important to take some advice or some inspiration from other games that were very successful, like the Batman Arkham Saga and the Insomniac Spider-Man series. And one of the things that I think Superman games should take inspiration from is to make sure that the character is very experienced. Like in the first Spider-Man game, Peter Parker's been a hero for 8 years. In Batman Arkham Asylum, Batman has been a hero for 8 to 10 years. It'd be cool to see a Superman story with him being very experienced, where we can just run into the action and fight enemies like Parasite, Lex Luthor, Doomsday, Cyborg Superman, etc. Just villains that Superman fights later in his career, so we won't need to introduce some of these villains for the first time. This would also prevent us from having a Superman campaign where he's not even dating Lois. I'll prefer for Superman to be married to Lois, and we can just be in the middle of his career, which would be similar to Post-Crisis. For the gameplay, first we have to talk about the elephant in the room, Superman's powers, and how do we handle it and make an entertaining game with it. Usually when I see a video talking about how a Superman game can work, they either say that Superman should be learning how to use his powers for the first time throughout the game, or they say that kryptonite should be in the atmosphere to keep Superman weakened for most of the campaign. I'm going to take this in a different direction though, because I think that these talking points only reinforce the idea that Superman cannot have a video game with all of his capabilities and his basic power set. And yeah, those ideas are kind of boring, to be honest, at least in my opinion. From the start of the story mode, I want the character to be powerful. Players should be able to embrace the full power fantasy of Superman from the very beginning. The first campaign mission will be a low-level threat that can't damage Superman, like armed thieves, just to show people how powerful Superman is. While the game is telling you which buttons to press to fly, use heat vision, frost breath, etc., I'd implement a cutscene that shows Clark learning his abilities for the first time when he was a kid in Smallville. It would be similar to the flashbacks in Jedi Fallen Order and Guardians of the Galaxy. Instead of locking Superman's basic abilities for most of the story mode, there should be a skill tree to improve his powers. For example, there should be a skill tree to improve his flight speed, the damage of his heat vision, the effect of his frost breath, how much he can lift with his super strength, how much damage he can use, just to improve his capabilities. The next thing we need to talk about is the villains. We can't let regular humans or regular weapons hurt Superman for obvious reasons, so the average enemy type in the game could be Toyman robots, the Lex Men, Intergang, etc. This way, players won't be taken out of the story or the gameplay because of Superman's lack of power. Every attack that hurts the character would be justified because he would be fighting other superpowered threats. Some of the basic enemy types can be villains, can be side character villains from Superman's comics, like Riot, Barrage, Anomaly, Conduit, etc., leaving Superman's more popular villains to be the bigger boss battles. Another thing that developers can implement in the game is a destructible city. Superman should be able to hit villains through buildings, and villains should be able to hit him through walls or buildings. Though Superman shouldn't be able to kill civilians or destroy the city in the game, because that would just be blatantly mischaracterizing the character. So we can't have that. It's not injustice. Plenty of Superman fans love the fight scenes in Man of Steel because it depicted what would happen if godlike beings fought in a city. The game should definitely take some inspiration from that, so we can have an immersive Superman experience. The game should also take some inspiration from Telltale so that the destruction you cause or prevent impacts the ending of the story. Your interaction with the people of Metropolis, and how many people you save, and how you choose to save people impacts how much the citizens trust you by the end of the story mode. So you could have multiple different endings for different people in their experience. One way to implement this system is to add a health bar for Metropolis. This would be a good feature in the Superman Return. This was a good feature in the Superman Returns game, but it would be even better if it was in a successful Superman game. Player will have to manage their health and the city's health at the same time to do well in the game.
Now we have to talk about the basic crimes that we should see in a Superman game.
Players will learn about the crimes that are happening with Superman's super hearing, the TVs in the Daily Planet, or through the supercomputer in the Fortress of Solitude. Some of these small missions will include catching an out-of-control plane, stopping car crashes, stopping trains from crashing into people or other trains, saving people from burning buildings, defeating kaijus, rescuing animals from trees, and many more. Each of the crimes that you stop and the people that you save will add to your reputation so that the Metropolis citizens will trust you even more as you go throughout the story, or even in the open world at the end of the story. They'll just be fun things to do while you're free roaming across the city. For the cosmetics portion, skins should all be free, and some should be unlocked in the story or found in Metropolis, the Fortress of Solitude, Clark Kent's apartment, or the Daily Planet. Alternate costumes should include suits from every live-action movie or show, and a variety of animated and comic book suits. Some of the suits should have their own abilities or resistances, like Superman's kryptonite protection suit, which should play a role in the story. The game should also provide their own version of a Superman suit, so to give fans another cosmetic suit to glaze. One thing that the previous Superman games have gotten wrong about the character is only letting you play as Superman and never really showing you what Clark Kent's life is like. Having Clark Kent's life actually helps to connect with the character because you're showing both sides of who he is. Clark Kent's life is just as important as Superman's or Man of Steel. The Daily Planet should be a place where you can access main and side missions. There should also be multiple missions that revolve around Clark Kent reporting on the ground. Sometimes Superman will miss events while flying the city in the sky, so Clark Kent will gather some of the intel Superman can't. The Superman game should also incorporate Superman's side characters like Lois Lane and Jimmy Olsen in the stealth side missions, similar to how Insomniac did in the Spider-Man games. One thing I want to make clear is that DC games don't have to play like a Batman Arkham game. Superman game doesn't have to be open world, and it doesn't have to have a combo-based system. I would just prefer if it was open world personally, because of the fun flight system and the exploration of Metropolis. The main point of the video is to show why I think a Superman game should be made, with an added bonus of my personal ideas for a game. Batman is one of the greatest characters in fiction and has been carrying DC's media for decades. Fans of the character like myself will support anything with the character in it, but I think people fail to realize how much DC fans want the other characters to succeed. As of this recording, it is 2026, and Superman hasn't had a video game in 20 years. It's great that Batman consistently gets good content for DC across media, but this shouldn't come at the expense of other DC characters fighting for scraps. DC projects for other characters don't fail because the characters simply aren't good. They fail because they get completely abandoned the second they get one bad project. Making a Superman game would be a great way to start a new initiative for DC that allows us to see different sides of the DC universe outside of Batman. That's all of my ideas for this Superman game, but now all of my ideas for Superman games in general. Many of you may have noticed that I only talked about Superman in the open world in Metropolis and didn't mention anything about him in space. So if you guys would like to see ideas for a space-based Superman game, leave a like and comment down below. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.